far away, Annie's parents are thinking of her too. Annie lived at the Hudson Street Home for Orphans, and she was just waiting for the day when her parents would come back to get her. You see, before they left, her parents gave her a locket and kept the other half for themselves. Annie held that dreamed about that day up when
I am Amelie.
Annie walked back over to comfort Duffy. He often cried in the middle of the night, and Annie was right there to help him out.
Don't worry, Duffy. I'm here for you.
As sweet as this was, Pepper had about all she could take.
How am I supposed to sleep? I'm the boss of this room now. Shut it.
Pepper thought she was the boss of the room, but the rest of the kids felt differently.
You're not the boss of me. You're not the boss of any of us. So how about you said it?
That's right. Pepper wasn't their boss. They were their own boss. Right, Tessie?
Yeah, you can't tell us what to do. We may be orphans, but we are strong kids with independent minds. We will do what we want.
Well, with all the kids standing up to Pepper, that gave Duffy the courage to stand up to Pepper, too. He went right over to her with his pillow and bopped her. Well, that started it. Before you know it, all the kids were right smack dab in the middle of a pillow fight. The pillows were flying everywhere. No one knew what was coming at them next. Finally, Annie stepped up and took control of the situation.
Stop.
Well, that got everyone's attention.
Now go back to bed. If I hear another peep out of any of you, I'm going to give you one of my famous knuckle sandwiches.
Pepper was trying to let everyone know that she meant business, and everyone would have to deal with her. Annie, however, wasn't the least bit afraid of Pepper.
Oh, blood is at your door.
That brought a smile to everyone's face. Just when they were all settled down and having a good time, talking, in walked Mrs. Hannigan. She and her grumpy old husband, Mr. Hannigan, were the caretakers of the orphanage. It wasn't the best job for either of them because they didn't even like kids. In fact, they found pleasure in making the orphans' lives miserable.
Did I hear any laughing in here?
Not one orphan answered her question. They just looked at her with their mouths sealed shut.
Since you are wide awake, get up, clean up the stump.
Mrs. Hannigan never missed the chance to make life terrible for these poor kids.
I'm done. No, I'm done. It's the middle of the night. I'm done, Mom. I had to wait for him.
Then Mrs. Hannigan said, Mrs. Hannigan didn't care what time it was. She wanted to punish the kids for waking her up from her much-needed beauty sleep.
I'm gonna have to wait. You will stay up until the stump shines like the top of the Chrysler building.
Then she turned and looked at all the kids, and in a mockingly sweet voice, she said,
Now, what do you say?
We love you, Miss Hannigan.
We love you, Miss Hannigan.
I love it, Miss Hannigan. I love you, Hannigans.
Then Mrs. Hannigan looked at the kids and said,
I don't know why any kid would be an orphan. Come on, guys. One room down. Down. Now it's time to clean the bathroom.
Well, it was a lot of hard work, but the orphans finally finished up all of the cleaning. Annie was on her way outside when she heard someone talking in Mr. Hannigan's office. Some people named Mr. Farrell and Drake were there. They were the assistants to the one and only Oliver Warbucks. They said they were there to bring home an orphan for the week.
What kind of orphan are you looking for?
Mr. Farrell and Drake looked around and saw their boss coming toward the office.
Comes the boss now, and let's ask him.
Mr. Hannigan looked, and sure enough, there was the one and only billionaire Oliver Warbucks making his way to the orphanage. Hannigan was beyond shocked. Of course, Annie had no idea who Oliver Warbucks was, but that didn't matter. This was her chance for a little adventure, and she sure wasn't going to let it pass her by. She peeked into the room, being very careful not to let Hannigan see her.
He wants to know what kind of orphan you would like, sir.
Just then, they saw out of the corner of their eyes a cute little girl, and of all things, she was flexing her muscles and trying to get their attention. Drake knew just what kind of orphan Daddy Warbucks wanted.
She was so adorable. She has to be happy. And she's a bit funny.
Well, this certainly sounded like our little Annie, but Hannigan had one more question for Warbucks.
What age are you looking for?
They all knew the cute little orphan Warbucks should take home, but they just didn't know her age.
I think she should be about 7, 8, 9, 10. She should be 10 years old.
Yeah, that's it. 10. Then Annie thought of one more thing that would completely seal the deal, and she would be on her way. She looked at Mr. Warbucks and pointed to her red, curly hair.
She is supposed to have with red hair.
Well, this was exactly the description of Annie. But Mr. Hannigan did not want to give her the opportunity.
Sorry, sir. Don't have any like that here.
Well, Mr. Farrell could see with his very own eyes that Mr. Hannigan wasn't telling the truth. So he walked right over to Annie.
What about the scholar? She seemed to fit the bill.
Mr. Farrell and Drake took Annie by the hand. But Mr. Hannigan wasn't about to let her go. He got a hold of Annie too, and the struggle began.
Now, we want this one done.
You cannot have her.
We want this one.
You cannot have her.
Back and forth they went. It was a struggle. But finally, Mr. Hannigan relented. Mr. Farrell and Warbucks had won, and Annie was now on her way to the Warbuck Mansion. About this time, a shady-looking couple appeared at the orphanage, and they looked like they were up to no good. Rooster Mrs. Hannigan's brother, and Lily, his wife, were a couple of the biggest con artists in town, and they were in need of their next big break.
I can't believe I lost other 20 books. That's racetrack. Haven't been too kind me lately.
Yeah, another $20 lost, another bet gone wrong.
I thought Lucky in the ninth race was sure to win. That really should change to that horse's name to Unlucky.
Unlucky. The couple was feeling down, but not defeated. This isn't the first time they'd been behind the 8 ball. They needed to come up with a plan to turn their bad luck around.
All we need is one big break. Something that will turn it all around.
Lily absolutely trusted that her man, Rooster, would take care of business.
Oh, Rooster, I know you'll think of something. You always do.
Rooster twiddled his mustache and looked up at the Hudson Street Home for Orphans sign and thought maybe, just maybe his sister and her husband could loan them some money. And he'd have to think of just the right way to approach them, though. Well, during the next few days, Annie had settled into the Warbuck mansion. Even in her wildest dreams, she could have never imagined the fun she would have during her stay.
Oh my goodness, this place is the best.
Annie, Warbucks, Drake, and Mr. Farrell spent the week having the best time ever. They drew pictures. They read stories together. And best of all, they made silly faces just to make each other laugh. Well, before the week was over, they even went to the movies. By this time, Mr. Warbucks had made the decision that he didn't just want to be Oliver Warbucks, the billionaire. He wanted to be Annie's father and become Daddy Warbucks. And he knew just how to tell her.
I don't need sunshine, but skies to blue. I don't need anything but you. You got me around, that little finger. You make life a song, you make me a singer.
Well, Mr. Warbucks could hardly contain his excitement, and he was a little nervous, because he was now ready to make his business proposal to Annie.
I have nothing of you, your dad.
But instead of being happy, Annie was a little confused. She already had parents who had promised they would come back for her. She told him her parents had the other half of her locket and would bring it with them when they came back to get her. She certainly appreciated the gesture, but she had to say no to the offer. Well, now that these men had heard her story, they promised to do everything they could to help Annie find her parents.
We will tell the war. We are looking for your parents.
Don't you worry, Amelia. If anyone can believe your parents, is Mr. Warbucks.
Mr. Warbucks, indeed. This made Annie very happy. With Warbucks' help, she was sure she would finally find her parents.
I will spend all of the money after Mama was Mama Dad.
Annie leaned over and gave Mr. Warbucks the biggest hug ever. Then the four of them set off. It was time to start the enormous job of locating David and Margaret Bennett, Annie's long-lost parents. The news was going out to the world. Within a few days, everyone in the country knew about Annie's search for her parents, due to all of the publicity on the radio, teletype, and newspapers. Even everyone at the orphanage knew Annie was now famous. As the Hannigans were in their office reading the paper, the orphans were quietly listening through the wall. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Mrs. Hannigan had no idea who she would find on the other side of that door.
It's your old brother, Rooster. Long time no see.
Mrs. Hannigan was positively in shock at the sight of Rooster and Lily, but she somehow managed to compose herself and invite the couple to come inside. Mr. Hannigan was just as shocked as Mrs. Hannigan to see the old rooster coming around the orphanage.
What on earth are you and Lily doing here?
Well, funny they should ask. They had heard or seen anything from Rooster and Lily, his wife, in a very, very long time. And when they did, it was usually because they needed money.
We need to turn our love around. You are just people that you can help us.
You see, Rooster and Lily had cooked up a plan, and they were hopeful that the Hannigans would go for their little scheme.
We heard on the radio that all the Warbucks, the billionaire, would pay 50,000 grams to Annie's parents when they come to get her. Can you please help us?
Of course the Hannigans would help them, and they knew just what Rooster and Lily could do to seal the deal and get the reward. But of course they had to cut the Hannigans in on the deal too.
We just what you need to get the award money. But of course, they will have to be something for us.
Well, yeah, a little something wasn't a problem. Cutting them in on the deal wasn't going to be a problem at all. There'd be plenty to go around for everyone. But just what was it that the Hannigans had that was going to seal the deal?
I know, thank you. Now, if I just find that box.
They explained to them that Annie's parents had died years ago in an accident, and the authorities had dropped off a box of items for Annie to have. Inside the box is the other half of Annie's locket. The Hannigans didn't want Annie to have it, so they never told Annie her parents had passed away. Finally, Mrs. Hannigan found the box, and sure enough, right there inside the box was just what she was looking for.
That locket will put on easy straight.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that. Here.
Well, after the positively giddy couple had sleeked out to put their evil plan into action, the upset orphans burst into the room.
Did you hear that? The Hannigans are up to no good.
Molly couldn't believe what she had just heard.
Rooster and Lily will do anything to get their hands on the money, and we can't let them. What are we going to do?
Kids were so worried about Annie.
Mom. Oh my goodness, yeah.
Duffy wondered, what should they do?
We gotta tell Annie before those con artists come and take her away again. Come on, guys. It's go time.
Yeah, they needed to get to Annie, and they needed to get to her fast. The orphans were a long way from the Warbuck mansion, but their friend was in danger. Off they went, up the 10 blocks to Broadway, to warn Annie. No, we're not even close yet, Duffy.
We are only at 3rd Street. We have to make it all the way to 10th Street. Come on, gang. Let's keep going.
So off they went again. While the kids had been running all over town, the evil con artists had already made their way to the mansion. The Hannigans waited outside while Rooster and Lily pretended to be Annie's parents, went in to collect Annie, and what they were really there for, the reward money.
We are Annie's parents. We have been looking for her everywhere. It's our little princess, okay?
Annie looked at the couple, but they didn't look familiar. For that matter, they didn't look very loving either.
Oh, Annie! My little sweetie guy. Mommy has missed you so very much.
Now Annie started feeling really uncomfortable and unsure what to do. She looked to Warbucks for help.
How you know you always good parents?
That is when Rooster reached into his pocket and took out the locket. And of course, it was a perfect match to the other half of what was around Annie's neck.
See, this necklace is a perfect match, just like us.
Now Annie was so sad. She didn't remember her parents very well, but she sure didn't picture them like this. She started thinking of how much she loved Daddy Warbucks. She just wished that he could be her father.
It does all make all in the book.
As Warbucks went to get his checkbook, her friends came bursting through the door.
Stop, Annie. Don't do it.
The kids were sorry to tell Annie that her parents had died, and the rest of the con job that was going down. With every word, the Hannigans looked more and more sheepish. They were also feeling more and more guilty about what they were trying to do.
These kids are right. Everyone on camera. It's all a lie. Annie, these aren't your parents.
With that, Rooster and Lily started feeling guilty too.
We're sorry, kid. Please forgive us. We're not really bad people. We're just poor. Anyway, Pumpkin, we be rotten parents. You belong here with Mr. Warbucks.
Annie was more than happy to forgive Rooster, Lily, and the Hannigans. Sure, she had lost her parents, but Warbucks would now be her father. They were now a family, and she finally had a place she could call home.
I love it, Daddy. Perfect.
Mama!
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the GiGi's cast of...
This time. I forgot.
Now it's time to meet the cast. The part of Duffy played by Joe. The part of Tessie played by Amelie. The rough and tough Pepper played by Kerri. Little Lily played by Gianna. The grumpy Mrs. Hannigan played by the lovable Shaina. And the grumpy Mr. Hannigan played by the not grumpy at all Henry.
That is the second
The
one.
part of Drake played by the double bond 007 James Bond lookalike Michael. Mr. Farrell, played by Mr. Wonderful, Brian. The part of Lily, played by Roxy. The part of Rooster, played by Ian. And the lovable Daddy Warbucks, played by the lovable Winter. And finally, a drum roll, please. The lovable, the wonderful, the orphan. The part of Annie, played by the wonderful one herself, Joy! Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, let's put our hands together for the cast of You know what? We're starting to get really good at this. Let's do it again. Who's up for 3 or 4 more times?
Times already.
Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful.
I think the second time was better.